Pollution.
Racism.
COVID-19.
Three of the biggest issues that our society is currently faced with.
As a global community, we're all connected.
All of these issues intertwine and intersect with one and another.
How can these three issues be connected when they are all so different?
6 youth from across the world have come together to share their perspective.
Julia,
Dexter.
Mason.
Charlie. 6 voices.
3 communities.
one
Planet.
planet.
These are our stories.
Mari kita kunjungi salah satu pulau terbesar negara-negara di dunia yang ada di Indonesia, terletak di antara kedua samudra Pasifik dan India. Ada banyak orang yang tinggal di pesisir wilayah Indonesia. Masyarakat pesisir Papua yang hidup di daerah ini sangat tergantung pada sumber daya laut.
But unfortunately, coastal communities face the biggest problem that threatens the balance of ecosystem, environment, and also the health of coastal communities. Each year, billions pounds of trash and other pollutants enter the ocean. Based on the research conducted by Jenna R. Jambek from the University of Georgia in 2010, there are 27 million tons of plastic waste produced worldwide. Around 4.8 until 12.7 million tons of them are wasted and polluted the sea.
Masalahnya masih masalah klasik ya kita masih dihantui sama sampah-sampah plastik, terutama sampah-sampah rumah tangga ya. Kita lihat di sepanjang pesisir, bahkan di laut yang mengapung itu mayoritas sampah-sampah rumah tangga.
And even during this pandemic situation, this problem continues to rise and persist with the new form type of waste such as medical waste that will threaten the preservation of our ocean and the coastal communities.
Kalau dilihat sih memang ada kelihatan sih dari ekosistem sampai dengan masyarakat pesisir ya, yang pasti laut menjadi kotor itu menjadi rumah untuk bakteri, karena kita tahu sampah-sampah yang dihasilkan oleh sampah rumah tangga ini dominan ada di hanyut ke laut dan kembali ke pinggir rumah atau tempat masyarakat, apalagi macam di kita di pantai Karwar sini atau di BLK sini banyak sekali pengunjung yang datang ataupun masyarakat yang datang beristirahat, bahkan mandi atau bermain di sini, dan itu sangat mengganggu. Bisa saja dilihat pada hari ini, mungkin sebentar bisa dilihatkan sampah yang memang tidak terkontrol lagi, sudah tidak terkontrol lagi oleh kita.
Let's visit the San Francisco Bay Area. In North Richmond, California, a large oil refinery lies near the water and pollutes the air of the surrounding vicinity. The residents of the surrounding community suffer from health conditions due to the poor air quality in the area.
I do have asthma, and it probably is attributed to the refinery because we grew up here in this area.
And the residents are disproportionately people of color.
Growing up in Richmond near the refinery was always a challenge because we were always a little afraid what would happen if the refinery actually blew up. So we live with that fear here. I don't think any refinery should be this close to a populated city like Richmond, so I don't particularly care about refineries being this close.
Numerous public health scares have occurred over the years involving the Chevron refinery. For example, in 1999, 3 Chevron emergency response workers were injured after an explosion and subsequent fire in the factory. Citizens of the surrounding area recall being frightened to hear a large explosion and see large black plumes of smoke emitting from the tower. Over the next 24 hours following the explosion, roughly 1,200 citizens checked into emergency rooms complaining of respiratory issues and eye irritation due to the poor air quality.
The citizens of Richmond are beginning to take a stand. They are pushing back against Chevron, the area's biggest polluter. In January of 2018, the city of Richmond filed a lawsuit against Chevron and 28 other fossil fuel companies, alleging public nuisance and negligence. The city of Richmond wants funds to adapt to a future where climate change is prominent. Small activists and political groups have formed in Richmond as well, including the RPA, which is dedicated to making Richmond a better and safer place for future generations to come.
The refinery had to control the city, and so they kind of did what they wanted to do. Chevron kind of controls the political environment in this city. Nothing happens in Richmond without Chevron's approval. Nothing.
Taking a stand politically and using the power of your vote is perhaps one of the most effective ways to elect change in your community.
If I had to say anything to Chevron, I would say that they should take full responsibility for the lives they affected in years past. I have a whole neighborhood of people that's probably sick because of Chevron to this day.
By electing officials into office that uplift your community and fight for justice, you're fighting back.
Ko te whenua koe, ko te whenua, te maurua. My name is Bailey Ashby and I want to talk to you all about eco-justice and what it means from a Māori perspective by interviewing Sheridan Waitai, the leader of her tribe for the environment. Let's do it. I'm here with the amazing Sheridan Waitai. First I'd like to say thank you for taking the time to speak with me. So the first question is, in an ideal world, what does eco-justice mean to you from a Māori perspective?
So that's about a complete different lens, and for us as Māori, so that would be recognising our maunga, so our mountains and our rivers as being our ancestors, so giving them human rights, just as much as we have rights, but actually acknowledging them and the protection of them just as much as we fight for people. What are the challenges? I suppose it's Western paradigms and the ability for us as Indigenous people to have a voice and be positioned in those leadership places, and also to be around the decision-making tables globally and nationally.
Alright, good. Okay, what do you think are the next steps for our generations?
The next step is to continue the current work like the likes of you and the Fourth Gen are doing. I think the most important thing for you to do is to act like you own it.
Yeah.
So it is yours, don't apologise for it, and just keep pushing through.
Yeah. So there you have it, eco-justice from a Māori perspective.
3 stories on one planet, yet all worlds apart from each other. 3 stories, all connected to the most current pandemic, COVID-19. How? In New Zealand, the fight for land to be turned to the Māori culture is just one of many battles against the exploitation of the environment. It is the same exploitation we see in the animal markets where COVID originated. In Indonesia, marine debris coming from other countries is impacting communities that don't have the resources to deal with these single-use plastics. The same single-use plastics that support the life of COVID for up to 1 week. And in California, systemic racism has forced people to live in areas with dense air pollution, which can cause respiratory issues and higher risk for COVID-19. Systemic racism and the plastics industry are worsening this pandemic. Systemic racism has led to overly processed food as an only option and heavy exposure to air pollution, both of which raise susceptibility to COVID-19. And now, amid widespread panic over this pandemic, the plastics industry is further pushing the single-use plastics as a sterile solution. However, single-use plastics actually let COVID live longer than other materials like wood or cardboard. And the abuse of the environment causing havoc across the world. The environmental movement fights many different issues, many of which are related to COVID-19.
So what can you do? 2 things. Support the environmental movement and fight against systemic racism.
The fossil fuel industry is the source of the single-use plastics that carry the virus. But perhaps even worse, the production of these plastics is one of the greatest contributors to global air pollution. Fossil fuels are one of the leading causes of climate change, and the pollution created by petroleum plants disproportionately affects marginalized communities.
Not only that, the state of our ecosystem is also increasingly threatened by the presence of marine threats that threaten the health of humans, animals, and our environment.
And by fighting against systemic racism, we can start to level the playing field so that no one community is affected more than another by the global issue that is climate change.
Most of all, we need to support policy and policymakers that are on the right track for our environment, and by extension, our futures.
To every adult out there, please make the right voting decision.
You have the power to change your community. Let's create a wave of sound to wash away any marks on our future.